Hello friends, neighbors, John, your wish neighbor here. Welcome down to the Nook and welcome to Sunday and a little bit of GlenAllachie love, I think. Today I'm going to walk through, I know it's Sunday tasting, and so I have not had a sip of what's here on the end, so that'll count as Sunday sample. But I just looked at what I had and I knew I was getting a little lower on this entrance expression from GlenAllachie, and I thought, well, let's put it in some context. So I'm going to walk through this 8-year-old. It's the entrance in their line, and then I'm going to talk about this 12. It's not the standard 12. This is the one finished in Ruby Port, and then I'm going to talk about the single cask. It's 11 years in PX only. It's this very dark one on the end. So if you've got any GlenAllachie, why don't you pour a dram and we'll sip together and see if any of my notes align with your notes, and then hopefully you'll throw down some comments as well. So pour some GlenAllachie and come on back. 3, 4. Now, I know I just said pour some GlenAllachie, but really if you have any single malt Scotch, but I suggest something that has some sherry influence, because everything up here has sherry influence, and I think that would be important if we're looking for any kind of similar thoughts. Let's jump off into this entrance line. So this is GlenAllachie, 8-year-old. In my market, it's actually available in many. It's actually at Costco for a really good price. So it sits in that 70 to 80 Canadian range, or less if you get it on sale. And of course, with all GlenAllachie, it's an integrity malt. This one, if you go to their website, actually says most of what's in here comes from PX casks or Oloroso casks. And then it says with a small amount of virgin oak and red wine casks. I was surprised when I looked at the makeup that there's no ex-bourbon in here. At least on their website it implies that. So let's get into this 8-year-old, reasonably affordable, but a nice integrity 46 natural non-color single malt. On the nose. And it's a nice sherried malt. It's got some fruits already in the nose, some light berry, I would say, going on, and then it's got a little bit of that slight nut, thicker sugared, slight grain almost on the nose. Yeah, the more I nose it, the more it moves into an interplay of different wine influences. I know it's a small amount of red wine, but I find the nose actually takes me into a sherry dram. So let's give it a taste on the palate. Sancha. In the palate, I find a nice sweetness, but a little bit of heat, a little bit of spice, ginger, slight orange, and just a little bit more heat than I'd expect on a 46. But 8-year-old, so maybe it's still young. These are all, well, there's a small amount of virgin casks because these are all used casks. So. But I'm a little bit surprised at the heat in the palate. Now, it's interesting to me that it doesn't, like it's there in the finish, but it doesn't leave me with a burning sense. In fact, it brings me back to a sweet, lighter sherry dram kind of in the end. It throws just hints like, oh, we might have gone into mocha, we might have gone into chocolate. We didn't get there, in my opinion. I find it to be really a sweet sherry, light cherry, certainly different berries in the mix. Raspberry is kind of one of my go-to. It's one of the berries I know the most, so I find that in there. And then it's sweet enough that I get into those jam notes. It's not like thick jam, cooked jam, but what I mean is that sugar that you get in jam. I actually get a fair amount of sugar in this dram. So I'm a GlenAllachie fan. I think Billy Walker's done some great things with the wood management there. And so I'm probably predisposed to, like someone says, hey, it's GlenAllachie, I'm probably going to like it. That's terrible to say. This one right now is actually hitting me pretty good. It's funny because I had gone into this a while ago and it sat on my shelf for months. And I poured it with you now because James dropped off the single cask, and it's It's working in my palate far more than my notes say. In fact, I was going to say it's pretty much almost the same as sheep dip, 40% colored mix. It's not. This is better. And for, yeah, you're paying more money. This is good. I find it sweet. I find it a little bit burning on the palate that I'm surprised. But actually, it's come together well and improved sitting around on the shelf at about half bottle. So let's move over to this 12-year-old. Now, this is the Ruby Port wood finish series, so it's different than the 12-year-old. What I can gather from their website is that for 10 years it sat in ex-American oak, it says, which I'm going to assume is ex-bourbon. And then for 2 years, it's re-racked into ex-Ruby Port pipes. I think so. Excuse me. It's bottled stronger at 48%, which is kind of interesting. And like all GlenAllachies now, it's natural color, non-chill filter. It's actually difficult to say, but in this context, I know you won't see it on camera. It does have a darker red to it, whereas this is quite dark because it's got a lot of that PX Oloroso. This one does have a little more red to it that comes off if you're actually in the room, not just through a lens. But let's try this 12-year-old Ruby Port. Boy, that is much darker wine influence, almost a grape and a sweet fruit. Yeah, this moves back into just more malt notes. Yeah, so sweeter, riper fruit, more almost grape, almost red wine influence. Slightly lighter on it's 48%, but this is already, maybe I'm just remembering the bird. Yeah, maybe. Let's just go with that. So nose for me, I think, is much sweeter cherries, sweeter, like grapey type note. Let's give it a go on the palate. Sláinte. What this was hinting at, this is delivering. The spicing is not aggressive in the palate. It's present. It's lively. It's got, now we are talking a little bit of mocha, a little bit more ginger, significantly more orange rind, orange zest, maybe more orange zest, not rind. Rind is more bitter, so zest to me is still that oil. It just drinks well. There is now in the longer finish a little sweet cherry, a little sweet, going back into where I started, the kind of a grape, like a full sultana grape kind of going on. Yeah, interesting. So this for me in my palate and what I'm looking for, maybe I've lost some of the broader spicing and the other things going on with the virgin oak in here. Maybe that's some of the tannins I was getting, but this is put together well. It's very tasty and just drinks as a more cohesive experience for me. Yeah, and a fair amount of sweetness too. Actually, both of these are pretty sweet malts, but this is definitely a step up for my palate. Okay, the real reason why we're here on the Sunday is this bottle here. James came by and said, John, I know you like GlenAllachie. I'd like to share this one with you. So it's a single cask. It's here in Alberta. This one actually came from Chateau Louis. I thought, because I was looking online, that maybe it came from Craft Cellars. It really reads like the same bottle, and it's on sale in Craft Cellars anyways. But this is an 11-year-old. It's spent its whole life. It's one cask in a PX, an XPX cask. It's released at 61.4%, and of course, it's natural color and non-chill filter. This I think will come across on the camera. Like the color of this, just go back to the 8 just because it got more of it in the glass. Like it is dark. Like it's wildly dark. Oh, that's interesting. I don't do a lot of leg comparisons for you guys, but I will say the oils and legs on the 8 were actually hanging on pretty good. They dropped a little quicker here. It's interesting. Or they're not dropping at all here. Okay, anyways, I got distracted. This is really dark, really like just speaks a lot just from its color, which we can consider because it's natural. Perhaps the darkness is doing this to me, but it is mustier. It's a little older, you know, that old oak, that yeah, seasoned older woods. Now, for 61 and something, for me to get my nose in there is interesting. This has more lively red wine notes. This has more, you know, gingerbread right on the nose. This is just darker. It just is. It's more fig, more rind, more yeah, figgy pudding. That kind of, you know, where you've got a lot of that almost older brandied kind of note. Yep. Let's dive in. Thank you, James. Sláinte. So that's first sip. We're gone 46, 48, 61%. It's almost drying through the palate. It's spicy. It's definitely coffee, mocha, espresso, though, you know, like a concentrated coffee and a concentrated PX malt. I've lost some of the general appeal that we've got through the series here, and we've focused down on that chocolate espresso. This might have been orange zest. This is now a little orange rind. Like, it's got a little bit of pith and this little bit of bitterness. Not in a negative way. I'm just saying it's got that. Just like, you know, when I have a bad coffee without cream, it's just bitter. When I have a good coffee without cream, it's an experience. That's what this is. It's definitely got all of those dark, thicker, you know, fruits, leathered, and it is bitter, but in a way that I enjoy. I better try another sip of this Scotch. Sláinte. Wow, that's good. And I must put a few drops of water on there to see if there's a place where some of the fruiting will open up, because right now it's delicious. It's so dark and broody, but I think maybe with just a splash of water, it doesn't have to be a lot, but something, it might wake up some of the rounder flavors that I'm getting in the Ruby Port, because right now it's speaking into what I like, that dark leathered mocha spicy oak. But it drinks really well at that 61%. And James said, you know, when it first came out, you can see it's sitting at half a bottle, just maybe like this, that it came out really hot and really spicy. And I'm getting spices and I'm getting darkness. I'm getting lots of concentrated flavor, but I'm not overwhelmed by the spicing by any means. And that was something that he said when he had that bottle. When it first came up, it was like, ooh, there's a lot of spice kicking on, but it has settled in. And from my palate, oh, and the finish is going on and on. This is awesome. And so, you know, when we talk value in single casks and that, it's really tough to say. But, you know, in my market, I can get this thing on sale for around $60, and that's a good value for an integrity full sherried Scotch, for my opinion. It's gotten better in the bottle. That might be a theme with GlenAllachie. When I first got it, I was actually disappointed and told myself I'd rather spend more on one of the 12 variants, because in my market, I can get the 12 for about $80. You know, I can't get the Ruby Port. That's more like 120, 130, that kind of thing. But you know, I've had the 12 a fair amount of times, and for me, the jump to 12 is worth the $20 every day of the week. Now, this is worth more as well. This Ruby Port's quite nice. But this single cask is, you know, it's kicking around right now on sale. I don't know if we're going to see these kind of prices, but around that, you know, 130 mark, which, you know, it's a fair amount for Scotch. It's a 61% Scotch. And if you like something like I described, where everything is playing into that cask, but it's not overcast. I've had some Scotch recently and some other whiskeys where all I get is the cask. There's still some good malt going through this. It does hold up, and I like this. And for me, especially when I looked online right now, the price between the the ruby poured in this. I got to try this with some water, see if I can dial it in, but I think I'm going home with this bottle just because of that. Just, you can't beat the dark, solid spicing that's coming through on that. So that's my value. I should have star rated them, but I didn't. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have you had, the 8, the 12? Have you had some single casks that are worth bringing home? This one? Yeah. If you like the way I described it, I think go find it. It's at Chateau. I'm pretty sure it's the same one on Craft Cellars. Anyways, thanks for joining me. Share your thoughts below. Hope you guys have a great week.